It is a first down. Pirates.
You can paint this one purple. What an incredible win by the ECU Pirates.
Welcome into Blackbeard's Alley, a pirate football podcast presented by L&K Customs Homes. We appreciate the loyal support of former East Carolina defensive back Kevin, better known as KK Walker, and we'll have a little bit more about them later on in the program and everything that they offer as a customs home builder. But right now we're recapping Thursday night's loss. Tulane 26, ECU 19. It was a game that had a lot of parallels, as Jason and I were discussing off the air, and that is to the NC State game in that season opener. The Pirates did essentially nothing the first quarter and a half offensively. Then you got a little momentum before the half, although you didn't get on the scoreboard. And thanks to your red zone defense and some Tulane mishaps, you trailed just 12-0 at halftime instead of what could have been about a 4-touchdown game. Jason, your thoughts?
Yeah, good to be here, Bubba. It's always sweeter to be here after a Pirate victory, but you hit the nail on the head. There's part of me that was frustrated with the offense, but also I kept praying to the football gods that Tulane would continue to shoot themselves in the foot and make bonehead decisions, and that game could have been out of control, early in the second quarter outside of those mistakes by Tulane. And also you got to give credit to our gritty defense. But the parallel to the state game is 100% spot on, because even BYU, we really shot ourselves in the foot in the first half and could have, set ourselves up for a little bit, higher chance for success with taking care of the football, et cetera, and not making bonehead plays ourselves. And, I know it's frustrating for the fans, but I can promise you that the staff and the players are working hard to not have another start like that. And hopefully this coming Thursday against Tulsa, we get off to a better, start offensively.
Yeah, going into the game, a lot of thoughts, whether it was, I know Coach Logan said this on his show, and just the general consistency was just what a solid team Tulane is. And they're clearly a very good football team, although they shot themselves in the foot repeatedly on Thursday night. And yes, we did some things to cause that at times, but their red zone woes were very familiar to us because that's the way the Pirates have unfortunately operated at times this year. And give our guys credit. They continue to play. Like Blake Carroll said in the postgame, though, it was frustrating that they were in the red zone so much.
Yeah, and I believe that it's a combination of a couple of things. I want to revert back to what I previously said in my previous statement is our defense is pretty daggone good. And you could tell we're selling out to stop the run on Thursday night. And I think some of these mishaps that they had and the luck that we had was created by our defensive effort. But we are who we are right now. We're sitting here at 3-3 and 1-1 in the conference, and we're in the lower half of the conference as far as our standings. But we've got a lot of football to play, and I hope our team and our fan base continues to realize that we're in a better situation than we were last year at this point. And we've got a more favorable schedule ahead of us, although the teams ahead of us are still, Division I football teams, and Temple looked a lot better on Saturday. But the main thing is the main thing this week, and that is to come out and beat Tulsa on Thursday night. That's the period. We've got to get this win at home.
Yeah, that's one of the things that really hurts because despite some of our flaws, whether it was untimely penalties, the inability to run the football, especially in short yardage and red zone situations or otherwise, we've had a chance to win every game on the final possession with the exception of BYU. And as you mentioned, in that game against what's now a top 20 football team that won in double overtime last night against Arizona to remain unbeaten, I think 6-0 now, we still were able to largely compete, despite a red zone interception and a pick six. But so that's the bright spot, that we know the potential's there in many regards. One of the things that was concerning going into Thursday night's game was you'd found out a few hours prior to kickoff that Bryce Weaver was going to be unavailable. So you had that shakeup on the offensive line, and it really showed there in the first quarter and a half. We allowed 3 sacks in the game. All 3 of those were in the first quarter and a half, and 2 of those came in the game's first 4 plays.
Yeah, but the good news is we've only given up 7 sacks on the year, and that doesn't make anybody feel any better about the record, but it means we're pretty good in pass protection. They're really good up front too, and they're very athletic and with length and size, and do a lot of different stuff similar to us defensively with their front to create confusion. And you could feel the offensive line working together and really trying to codify themselves with the changeup right before the game and gain their rhythm. And it started showing up in the second quarter, late in the second quarter, and also carried them to the second half with the success with Gunn and TJ Engelman.
Yep, and Marlon Gunn, a homecoming for him, obviously from Baton Rouge, and had a large contingent there, and as he did a couple years ago when we played down there. And I believe he and some of his teammates got a nice home-cooked Cajun meal. But Marlon finished 10 carries, 52 yards, had one for about 15 or 20. And TJ Engelman, I'm very interested moving forward in how many touches he gets, because he shows some explosiveness. And, as long as he can hold up in pass pro, I'm really interested to see, how many snaps he gets and how many touches, he's provided.
Yeah, and I don't make it real hard to figure out if we have a conversation about ECU football and offense right now. I feel like they're 1A and 1B as far as the running backs, in my opinion, just from watching the game Thursday night. It's easy to see that TJ has that one-step cut explosiveness, like you said. He could take a run that looks like it's going to be 2 yards and pop one for 15 really quick. And then you got Marlon, who's more of a downhill, square shoulder pads to the line of scrimmage runner. But all the Pirate fans will say, and it's what I see as well, he always tends to fall forward and gains an extra yard and a half on his runs just off the sheer effort and leverage.
If you would have told us coming into the game that the Pirates would only throw for, I think it was 180 yards, 19 out of 30 was Caton Hauser, and only 10 of those 19 completions were to wide receivers or tight ends. 9 of the 19 came to running backs. Just really the biggest play in the passing game was clearly the one that set up the score or the pass to Anthony Smith that set up a score a few plays later.
Yeah. From an overall perspective of the game, we won the rushing battle at Tulane. We dominated on third down. We had fewer penalties. We had 0 turnovers, and still lost the game. Those are some of the leading indicators for a win. So if you look at the stat sheet, if you'd have given me the stat sheet, I didn't watch the game, and you put them side by side without any context of why we were so much better on third down than them, I would have told you for $100 that East Carolina won that football game. And because you didn't have a context of the first quarter, didn't see what was going on, didn't see our struggles with the rushing game early on, inability to move the football. So it's just one of those weird situations. And it seems like we continue to run in this over the last 10 or 12 years where, we're behind, we come back, we're starting to play really well, and we give up 1 or 2 big plays that then just bites us in the butt as the in the fourth quarter that we just can't recover from. And we had a lead and really all the momentum in the stadium, and just didn't finish the game, didn't finish the deal, didn't get the W.
Yeah, taking my point from a moment ago regarding only 10 completions to wide receivers / tight ends, I think J.C. Connor, had just that one reception. But Johnny Gardner chimes in saying, feed the ball to Anthony and or Yannick. Anthony, I think, finished with 2 catches. Of course, the bulk of that production coming on that 47 or 49 yarder, whatever it was there that set up the score. And then Yannick was very quiet also. And going into the game, if you'd have told me that kind of the counterpoint to what you were saying about looking at the stat sheet and some of the positives as far as not turning the ball over, out rushing Tulane by 70 yards, and then committing fewer penalties by 4 or 5 penalties, that you'd have felt pretty good about things. If you'd have said Yannick Smith and Anthony Smith only have 5 touches, that would have clearly been a negative.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with Johnny too. Since JDB's been here, when we are attacking vertically, it tends to open up the underneath stuff in the running game, whether it's a stretch zone that we saw some on Thursday night, which is a good change up, and the inside and outside zone after RPOs. So I couldn't agree more. I'd like to see us be more aggressive and take some more deep shots early on and make the defense, anybody who's coached or played at college football or high-level high school football, I'll tell you, if those safeties can continue to walk down towards the box, you now minimize how effective you can be in the running game. Let's continue to push them and make them line up 12, 13, 14 yards deep on the hashes in cover 2, or 15 yards deep in cover 1 or cover 3, and give us a better chance to get that running game established by having less people in the box who are leaking in and making tackles for a 3-yard gain.
Yeah, and give credit to Tulane's secondary and just their pass defense as a whole. Rush, of course, included. Just the way they blanketed our receivers, and that's something that Tom Luganbill was talking about on the broadcast. Because Corey Glore, I was sitting there thinking, I was like, was Corey sandbagging on us? Because I hadn't had a chance to watch much of Tulane prior to this matchup, just a few plays here and there, and that was not what we saw on Thursday night. They really smothered our receivers for the bulk of that game.
Yeah, you summed it up. There's nothing else for me to say. You got to give them credit. They were all over us, and it kept us out of rhythm until we did finally get into rhythm. And I looked like we saw the real offense in the third quarter. And I say that, there's going to be people who say we need to throw it more, we need to put this guy in, do this, do that. Sometimes you get into the game and get in the flow of the game, you have to go what you've got working, and the running game is working for us. And like I said, a deep shot to Anthony Smith to help set up the score. But yeah, hats off to Tulane. They're 5-1. We're 3-3. You can't argue with that.
On the flip side, in the passing game, going into Thursday's game, I had told a large Pirate group text that I'm in, just that one of my concerns was that I think back to the BYU game where they had the opportunity to connect on some deep balls on play action and had been unable to do so, just errant throws or drops. Same thing against Army, perhaps one of those against NC State. So I really felt like some of those things would be there for the taking. Clearly, we were worried about Retzloff and the ground game, and rightfully so. But man, there were some guys just wide open in the first quarter alone on Thursday night. 11 plays, if I'm not mistaken, over 10 yards. Just yep. That was tough to watch.
Well, it's hard to tell when you're watching the game on TV, in which I was. I wasn't fortunate enough to go down to New Orleans for the game. Coach Hud summed it up, 100% when he was talking about it on the fifth quarter call-in show. Retzloff has the arm. He was taking a deeper shotgun snap and even taking a deeper drop. So he's doing what people call, and Coach even said it's called an NFL drop. He's about there 9-10 yards deep. We're already playing in a tight formation, so our rush lanes are tough because we're trying to keep him from running all over us and shredding us with his legs. So we're staying sound in the box. which slows down and doesn't provide the best angles for getting a pass rush because you're held inside a lot of times on an inside technique. And then he's able to sit back there and allow his crossing routes and folks who are clearing across the field for those deep drags, deep digs, glance routes, things like that to get open. And he's making the throws. He has the ability to make the throw from that depth. So hats off to him. They did a good job. They saw something in film and took advantage of it. And we've been fortunate, and as you mentioned in some of our earlier games, having drops. I mean, even Army. Think about the Army game if they didn't drop those balls on that one drive. That could have changed the dynamics of the game. We could be sitting here at 2-4 instead of 3-3. Who knows? But we just got to do a better job of beating the crap out of those crossing receivers when we're in zone, for sure.
Right. And really, any final thoughts on this one before we move on? I guess the only couple things we haven't mentioned. Blake Carroll and his aggressiveness, we continue to see that. And that's something we talked about off the air pre-show. And just as far as going for it repeatedly on fourth down, you went for it down there. I think it was 4th and 7 or something like that. When we were trailing 12-7 in the third quarter, you end up getting a penalty. And then you and I were both saying that we would have kicked a field goal to make it 12-10. And fortunately, it worked out. You ended up getting a 10-yard touchdown run, a really nice run by Caton Hauser.
Yeah, I love that he did that and got it, because if not, we would have had a purple meltdown online after the game. So the one piece I like, and we used to call the kickoff that we recovered, and it's not an onside. We used to call, when I was coaching in high school, I had 2 kickers at 2 different schools individually who could do that kick, and we call it the dead duck. And that was a great situation with this flow of the game and what was happening when momentum changed, just to lob that thing right in that little dead duck area is what we used to call it. But the ball has a different spin to it. And I just was so excited that we did that. And that goes back to Coach Harrell and just the gunslinger mentality. And that's why I love him as a leader of our program. And that was such a cool thing to do, because that put us in that was just going for the win as opposed to trying to keep it safe and trying not to lose mentality, which I appreciate out of him.
Right. Yeah, I definitely love that. And that's one of those things with the football, you never know where it's going to bounce. And that thing hung a left. And to our credit, we were right there to fall on it. I'm trying to remember who it was, but excellent, well conceived and well executed by everyone. And unfortunately, I think at that juncture, it was 13-12, and we ended up having to get a 46-yard field goal from Nick Mazzy, which split the uprights, if I'm not mistaken. And then you had that penalty, though, that you're really thinking, hey, if you can go down and make this a 20-12 game, that they're going to be on the ropes. But
what was the penalty again, Bub? I can't remember now.
Seems like it's a hold. Maybe a
10-yarder. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it was a 10-yarder.
You're right. You make it 20-12. Chances are we win that football game.
But even after that, it was you make it 16-12. Tulane is immediately responding, or it looks like they're going to respond. They get inside our 5-yard line, maybe even the 2 or 3, put the ball on the ground. We recover it. At that point, you're thinking, hey, maybe we're going to find a way to win this game. It just seems that way. And we were getting the breaks, making the breaks. And I think that was a possession. We ran it 6 straight times, gained about 25 or 30 yards, ended up punting it from about our own 30 or 35. And that's another aspect that we have not that we failed to mention in the slow start that was a key contributor, and that is 2 punts that were 21 yards or less. You had the first one that was 21, and then the second one was 18. And then you saw Blake Carroll's frustration. He immediately called those 2 guys in and was pretty animated on the sideline, and rightfully so.
Yeah, I was wondering how many fans sitting in the stands were getting out their insurance cards for medical insurance, because one of those things will get sprayed in the stands and pop somebody, like a Major League Baseball game happens sometimes. I mean, it's like, what the heck is going on? The operation just didn't look clean. And on the first one, if I remember right, I felt like there was a pretty good I believe Tulane on the first kick, which was awful. I believe Tulane did get quite a bit of pressure. And when a kick goes like that, typically either as you know, Bubba, from kicking, they completely missed the drop,
Right.
or the punter looked up.
Right.
And I think he looked. I think if we could go back and watch, he looked up, because just the way that ball went off, I thought it was going to hit somebody in the bleachers.
That's one of the things, if you go watch a practice, or, whether it's a team practice or, just a punter out at the field, just the number of drops and just the repetition there, and the comparisons and analogies that are made to a golf swing and golf game, there's definitely a reason why, because if you have a poor drop, you have no choice but to swing your leg to where the football is. So you see punters just walking the yard lines, just drop after drop, and that could have very well been the case there. There was a third punt. We were very fortunate. We got over a 20-yard roll, because it was looking like it was just going to be 30 yards. So hopefully we'll get that squared away between now and Thursday. Because
who was doing the punting? Was it did both guys kick?
They did. It was Levy, and then also O'Halloran, the Aussie. So yeah, it was Levy. They had the 21-yarder, and then we put O'Halloran in. O'Halloran had a 40-yarder, and then that one was okay, but the 51-yarder was the beneficiary of like a 21 or 22-yard roll, and then he had the 18 or 19-yarder where we had a chance to flip the field. You'd finally gotten things going offensively and had the chance to pin Tulane deep, and instead you give them a shorter field there with the ball about the 40-yard line. I had to go back and watch that one again. And watching it almost felt shorter than an 18-yard punt, as bad as that is. But outside of those two punts, the special teams were pretty solid. You had Mazzy with the 2 field goals, and you also had Kyler Pearson had a couple nice punt returns, one on the sideline over there where he kind of tight-roped it and got us about 15 yards. But those 2 shank punts were really butt kickers.
Yeah, O'Halloran's, I was down in his first year, and when we had the 72-year-old Australian punter as well, I was down on the field during pregame warmups, and it's been a long time since I've seen somebody punt a ball like he was doing, and they just said he wasn't ready to play at that point. But I was afraid if they did put him in the game, he'd outkick the coverage. I mean, he's killing it. It was unbelievable. I just sat there and watched him for 10 minutes. I was like, I said, screw everything else. I'm gonna watch this guy, because he's going to be the real deal when he gets a chance, if he can keep his operation in line and not be worried about everything else that's flying around him. And it looks like they're trying to work him in, and hopefully he gets his confidence back and can hit the ball like I saw him doing in person.
Yeah, that's one of those things I remember with the Andrew Bays back in the days. There were punts where he would boom it 60 yards, and it wouldn't have terrible hang time, but when you're punting the ball 60, 65 yards, you can definitely outkick your coverage, and then all of a sudden guys are getting 15, 20-yard returns. But that's something. Go ahead.
The other good news too is the 46-yarder, Mazey hit that ball really well. That looked good. It's nice to see that.
Yeah. He had not been used much, and we'd gone for it so many times in the red zone. We had the one blocked down there at Coastal. Poor operation, and then also with them putting the white light on the scoreboard there, that was an interesting dynamic as well. But But yeah, I'm interested. I'd love to know if that's a standard procedure for a field goal there at
Yeah,
Brooks Stadium.
I'm gonna say Bush League. I want to say it's something else though, but it's Bush
Yeah.
League to keep it clean for the kids who might be listening. Yeah.
But we have Justin Butts and Don Scruggs also chiming in via YouTube. Appreciate you guys. Don saying he's new to the channel. Appreciate that, Don, and be sure to subscribe and share it with your Pirate friends. Also, Justin, he made that quick trip down to New Orleans. He had to be back to officiate on Friday night. I'm sure that was a lot of fun.
Wow.
Hey,
I tell you what, that's a true pirate right there, my friend.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that's a true pirate right there. He figured out a way to get it done no matter what. That's awesome.
Justin, hopefully you didn't have a coach or two riding your rear end on Friday night. I can imagine you may have been a little short with your patience on that amount of rest and sleeping on an airplane. But I know he also said that he saw the famous Ed Orgeron, Coach O, there, enjoying the game. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's his son. I don't know if he's a GA or just a full-time staff member there.
Yeah, I don't know. I ran into Coach Orgeron down in Miami at Fountain Blue one time when he's by the pool. I'll just say this. He's a charismatic character, if anything else. That was an interesting conversation we had, and I laughed. I hadn't laughed that hard in so long. My abs were hurting.
I would always laugh at the videos of him in Baton Rouge or elsewhere, jogging shirtless and everybody hollering at him and him throwing up his hand with, he's taking steps that are literally about 6 inches and just the smallest steps ever. But to his credit, he's getting a workout in, and it's just hilarious. He's throwing up his hand. Go Tigers! Go Tigers!
You got it.
But ahead for the Pirates, and they will be playing another Thursday night game, the third consecutive and fourth of the year, as Tulsa, first-year head coach, coming to town, Trey Lamb did such a nice job at Gardner-Webb, and then was executing a turnaround at East Tennessee State as well. Had them competitive with last year's FCS national champion, North Dakota State, falling to them just by 1 point last year in what ended up being about a 500 season with the ETSU Bucks, and then had the chance to move to the FBS ranks. And at Media Day, he gave an excellent speech, but he was talking about, he said, yes, you have Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, SEC and Big 12 programs right here, and we're flying a bit under the radar. He said it's going to be tough for us to go head to head with Oklahoma, but Oklahoma State, and he said there's no reason we can't get our share. And then they go in there, and yes, it's not one of your better Oklahoma State teams, one of the worst teams in that program's recent history, safe to say, and just their entire football history. But to his credit, in year one, building it there at Tulsa, they go into Stillwater and found a way to get it done a few weeks back.
Yeah, it seems like we play a game and we turn right around and play another game, and with all these Thursday night games, messes with people's weeks and things like that. But the bottom line is they're an FBS team as well, and they're coming in town, and obviously they beat Oklahoma State, and it's not like Oklahoma State has a bunch of 1-stars on their roster. They have some turmoil internally, things like that behind the scenes that we don't have any real insight on unless you're an Okie State fan for some reason, which I wouldn't understand that either, but that's neither here nor there. And we better be ready to play. And I don't have any doubt that Coach Harrell and Coach Tesh, JDB, Coach Aldridge, the whole group, Mag, still have these guys ready to play. One of the things that I feel like again will be super important for us is just like the Army game, have a good crowd there so the energy can be at a premium, and we do everything we can to help these young guys put together a win and get us to 4-3. We've got to exit Thursday night 4-3, period. In my opinion, but
I agree. Yeah, Holt Naylor's told an interesting story. Give him credit. I believe it was on his show, either that or PRL, as far as Trey Lamb's, who comes from, as Johnny Gardner mentions here, coaching family royalty tree, Bobby Lamb, and then what he did at Furman and Mercer, his dad that did so much as a high school coach in the state of Georgia, and I guess what is his cousin, but Trey Lamb, not Trey, but that played and quarterbacked at App State, but he's now the quarterback's coach up at UVA, and what a season they're having up there. He has an excellent quarterback that he's tutoring with Chandler Morris, but yeah, Trey Lamb comes from good blood in the coaching circles, and he had inquired through his agent about our OC job when we let go Donnie Kirkpatrick before we hired John David Baker. He was trying to get his name in the hat. I don't know how far that progressed, but Holton was just saying that he had good thoughts about him because of he clearly believed in East Carolina. He was willing to leave a head coaching job to be our OC and to jump into the FBS ranks.
Yeah, tell me if I'm wrong, Bob. I believe Brett Hickman, who we both know, is it Bobby Lamb, the head coach there at Anderson University, who Brett's working for? That's one of the Lambs. I can't remember which one, but yeah, he's a good coach. They're going to be well coached. They're going to be good. The biggest problem he's going to have there is the biggest challenge he's going to have there, and maybe he can turn it around. They just have never really had a whole lot of what I call pirate style following. We can be pretty rabid when we need to be. Half our fans probably need a rabies shot sometimes when our team's playing well. But it just seems to be cavernous every time you play there. It's not Rice cavernous. It's not old Superdome cavernous, but it's just Superdome. It's just not a lot of fans there typically. Everybody in Oklahoma seems to be a Cowboy or Sooner or University of Texas fan, for example. So that's going to be his biggest challenge, is just getting that true fan base behind you so you can get to that next level. Now, I can tell you this from just my business world, there is no shortage of money and funds in Tulsa, Oklahoma from oil money. So if they've got some healthy donors, which they do, wealthy donors, he could probably buy a football team if he needed to, just like Texas Tech did last year. This past season, this season now. Yep,
and you are correct as far as Bobby Lamb being
good man,
being the head coach there at Anderson and startup football program. So an excellent choice there. Seasoned vet and proven head coach to launch that program. And then I knew it was another T name. Taylor Lamb is the quarterback's coach, former App State quarterback, now at the University of Virginia. I'm doing great things there with Coach Elliott. And thanks to Johnny Gardner, it was on the fifth quarter that Holton Ahlers mentioned that, not PRL or the Holton Ahlers show. But one final thing before we get out of here, a very quick run through of the American and the games that took place over the weekend. You had Army, 24-7 winners over Charlotte. The 49ers continue to struggle and just have had no offense. You had South Florida, and this was the game that was really circled on the league slate going into the weekend, and that was South Florida traveling out to Denton to take on North Texas. I was really surprised that South Florida was 1.5 point dog, and so almost a pick 'em. But I really felt like this was a game. It would not surprise me if they won by 2+ touchdowns, and they won 63-36.
Yeah. And if you look at it, there's other scores too. Navy beat Temple, I think at the very end of the game, right? Up in Philadelphia, if I'm
you correct. Are at Lincoln Financial Field. Temple led by double figures in that one. Maybe it was, I don't know if it's 17-7 or 21-7 at halftime, and trailed late. And they, on a 4th and 1, as they so often do, they ripped off a 54-yard run by Blake Horvath, and then got the 2-point conversion. Instead of kicking the PAT and going to OT, they They got that 2-point conversion to win at 32-31 and remain unbeaten, 6-0 overall, 4-0 in the American. You had FAU. They blew out the Blazers of UAB 53-33 down in Boca. FAU now 3-3, 2-1 in the league. Rice was absolutely massacred at the Alamo Dome as the road runners took off some. Yeah, absolutely cooked in the Alamo Dome there. Just unbelievable. And I thought UTSA would definitely win the game. I didn't see that score necessarily, but they had suffered some tough defeats in recent weeks, and I knew they would be very frustrated, and I was intrigued to see how they would respond, and boy, did they. That game was 61-10 going into the fourth quarter, so they didn't even score in the fourth quarter and still put up 60. Pretty remarkable there as they improved to 3-3, 1-1. Rice fell to 3-4 and 1-3. So taking a look now at this week, in addition to ECU and Tulsa, you have Tulane and Army, Charlotte and Temple, that taking place in the Queen City, North Texas hosting UTSA, UAB hosting Memphis, and South Florida hosting Florida Atlantic. So some very clear-cut favorites in those games. And Temple is now putting itself into a situation like East Carolina and trying to move into that upper echelon of the league with Tulane, South Florida, and Memphis. In addition to Navy, obviously, Navy's right there.
Yeah. One thing that sticks in my mind is our commissioner, Tim Panetti, when he was on IGO's pregame show before the Army game. He talked about how he loves to put East Carolina on the national spotlight just because of the stadium, the fans, and everything. I'm hoping that we do that again this Thursday night and have a better showing and put ourselves at 4-3 and let some of the teams who are in the upper echelon kind of knock themselves out through head-to-head competition. And, we've got so much more football to play, and so many of these teams have to play each other that haven't played, and they can cannibalize themselves. We just got to take care of our business and do our stuff. And, Blake Carroll said something the other night, and his coach speak, I know for interviews, but he says the little things. And if you look at the season with you just throw out the fact you're an East Carolina fan and you really look at the season, it is the little stuff that we continue to do to ourselves that we can self-correct and become a really good football team. And I anticipate that happening. I do. I think I have faith in him, faith in the staff, faith in the culture, faith in our players, obviously faith in our fans, Pirate Nation. So looking forward to seeing everybody down in Greenville on Thursday night. And hopefully, as they say, it's rowdy and dowdy.
Yep, very sharp-looking helmet that we'll be wearing with our black uniforms, a purple lid with a white script Pirates. And social media was definitely very excited, be it Pirate Nation or unbiased observers, of that uniform, as they so often are. Now we just got to take care of the main thing, and that's winning the dang football game. But
so before you go, Bubba, I got to say, hats off to our media team for that video, the uniform reveal for the night of the Boneyard. That thing was awesome. I don't know if you catch it. When Sam Danka's walking down that hallway, I didn't see it until like the 15th time I look at it. That little crazy man pops his head out behind him down the hallway, and it scared the SHIT out of me the first time I saw it, man.
I'm going to have to rewatch it now because
it's pretty cool.
I watched it in a hurry this morning. I did not catch that. So now that you've pointed that out, I'll have to go back and watch it.
It's cool.
Night of the Boneyard, Pirate Nation, obviously wear black, create a rowdy atmosphere, and let's get to 4-3, 2-1, and get some momentum going into another open week before you start the grind that will be the month of November with 5 games beginning November 1st up at Temple. And then the Pirates' next home game after Thursday night against Tulsa will be on November 8th when that team from the West will come to town. And that's one that has been circled for a while and literally on the clock inside the Ward building in the locker room. But join Jason and I on Monday. We'll have Bruce Howard, the play-by-play voice of the Tulsa Golden Hurricane, on our Tulsa preview show. He'll tell us about Trey Lamb's ball club. Then coming to you here in the next several days, we'll have an East Carolina legend, one of this year's Hall of Fame inductees, or actually two East Carolina legends, Shane Carden and Dwayne Harris will join us. And then a great Pirate from the late 60s and early 70s who recently penned a book about his ECU experience in football and baseball, and that's Dickie Carrata, a receiver back in the Clarence Stasevich, Mike McGee in that era, Sonny Randall in the late 60s and early 70s. So, excellent gentleman, and look forward to chatting with him once again. It's been a few years, but that will do it for this edition of Blackbeard's Alley as we recap East Carolina's 26-19 loss down in New Orleans as the Pirates fell to 3-3, 1-1 in the American. We appreciate everyone tuning in. Be sure to like, follow, comment, and subscribe. We're at Blackbeard Alley on X, Blackbeard's Alley on Instagram, and subscribe, of course, to our YouTube channel. We'll talk to you on Monday as we preview ECU Tulsa. And as always, go Pirates.
Painted purple all night long in Eastern North Carolina.